Hello yarn gang, Nikki from Bunny Crafts Oxford here with a new Dye With Me video. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, then thank you very much for joining me again. Today's video is going to be about dyeing some speckled yarn, heavily speckled yarn, using acid dyes. And I'm doing a voiceover because I had my respirator mask throughout the entire video and sounded like Bane. It was awful. You couldn't hear anything. It was muffled. So I'm going to try and sort of persevere along as I watched the video to do a little bit of commentary as to what I am doing. The inspiration is a doodle of a flower that I did and the colours that I did it in, and I will also try and when I edit this put a photo of said flower. So we're going to do this quite low immersion. The acid dye is mixed with citric acid, and we're going to be working with 3 types of colour and 2 types of yarn. We have, as I'm pointing, some 75% merino, 25% nylon DK, and a high twist 80% merino, 20% nylon yarn, which is in sock. So the different yarn bases, so you'll have slightly different effect on how the dye is going to strike. So I'm showing you the mixed dye. So this is neon yellow. I think it's called, I don't actually remember what that color is called. But yeah, so we're going to be using neon yellow color. Then we're going to be using these sort of, it's between plum and raspberry, called Plum Dandy by Dharma. And then finally we're going to be using another Dharma color called Sage Green. And we've mixed all of the colors, equal quantities of the colors. So I think I put about half a gram with 1 tablespoon of citric acid and just mixed it around in my containers. And I'm just going to pinch some of the color and I'm going to sprinkle it onto the yarn. The yarn was pre-soaked with 2 tablespoons of citric acid mix that I do. So it's about 1 litre of water to I think a tablespoon of citric acid. It's quite acidic, so I kind of do a solution, and you see me just trying to make sure that I get some heat through the yarn because it is quite low immersion and my burners are in a particular place. I just want to make sure that the yarn is well warmed up because I want the dye to strike as quickly as possible. So this is why it's quite an acidic solutions. This is why there is very little water, and I think what I'm saying at the moment is up towards the top of the screen, that bit of yarn is actually a little bit cooler from my memory. So I'm just trying to distribute all the heat. So to get acid dyes to bind, you'll need obviously your protein based yarn, which this is, so you know, wool, silk, alpaca, yak, things like that. You need acid, which we'll have in the citric acid and also in the pre-soak in the water, and you need heat, which is why I'm keen to try and get this all heated and nice and warm. And I'm going to start sprinkling the dye and we'll see what happens. So I think I start, yeah, I can see it just off the corner. So I start off with the yellow. One thing that I really wanted to try with this yarn is go quite heavy on the colors, go quite be brave basically. If you've watched my previous video, which was on the tie-dye yarn, you see that I was quite afraid of the neon colors that I used and therefore didn't end up with a yarn that's quite as bright as I wanted it to. So basically you can see me going quite heavy with the neon yellow. And the other thing that I want to make sure as well is that I don't end up mixing the colors before they bind. So every time I sprinkle color, once I'm happy with the amount of pigment that is on the yarn with that color, I will then give the color about 5 to 10 minutes and give it a chance to strike to the yarn, to bind to the yarn, so that when I add the next color I don't get the mixing. There will be some mixing where, you know, the two pigments will be on top of each other, but that's more of a layer rather than, you know, mixing, for example, the green and the plum dandy, which ends up sort of being a, it does this really weird thing when you mix green and raspberry colors. It turns into an interesting purple, and this is something that I'd like to try as well. So while we're waiting to do the next color, well, we're not waiting to do the next color, I'm going over the plum dandy. As I said, I really hope that this will be a nice colorful yarn. And to be fair, I know what happens. I'm recording this a few days later, and there were some interesting things. So I'm pointing to one of those interesting things, and that is the plum dandy is made out of a blue and a pink, I think. And you can see as I'm zooming in, it breaks. So what that means is when the color breaks, it separates into the two different color molecules, or sometimes three if it's made up of more colors. So you can see those blue specks that are happening as the dye is breaking, and you get that with quite a few colors. So you get that really obviously with the sort of purples, and one of the colors that breaks absolutely spectacular is actually a food coloring, and it's Wilton's Violet. And if you want to see a Wilton Violet breaking, then Rebecca at Chemknits has a few videos where she's broken not just Wilton Violet but any sort of violet and purple color, and I'll try and find them and link them in either the iCard, or I'll just definitely put them in the show notes below. But yeah, I'm going into town with this, with the plum dandy, and I absolutely love the combination of this plum raspberry color with the neon yellow. It's such a beautiful beautiful color combination, and the idea behind it is that, you know, this is the flower with the yellow representing the stamen in the center, you know, nice pop bright, and then you have the plum, which is luscious and just beautiful, and then the sage green is to represent the leaves. And I think I'm going to show me putting the sage green in a minute. I'm going to tell you now, it again didn't quite go to plan, and you'll see in a minute why. And it again has to do with the colors that make up the sage green. So that color is quite a bluish green, and as I put it in, and I think that is what I'm doing here, you will notice the yarn will start having more and more sort of blue speckles coming through. And the blue isn't necessarily what I wanted. I wanted green. But we can't always get what we want. And instead, we are going to have a bit of blue. I might have to speed up the video because I'm actually talking a little bit faster than the actual recording, because again, as I said, I know what happens. I'm zooming in here to show you the breaking of the plum dandy. I'm still fascinated at this stage of the video, and I think I moved the camera around to see if I can show it a little bit better. And yeah, you can see the blue specks where I'm pointing and where it's just broken into blue and pink. And I love that about these colours. I love that depending on the conditions that you set up for yourself, you're going to get very, very different effects, even with the same colour and the same technique. If there was less acid in the yarn, then you're less likely to see the breaking, because so one of the reasons why breaking happens is that one of the colors, usually the red, will bind to the yarn quicker than the blue. It also tends to spread a little bit more. And so while one of the colors already bound, the other one kind of just stays, and then you end up with normally a blue fleck with, or blue speck with a pinkish purplish halo around it. And it's absolutely gorgeous. So as I said, for you to be able to dye yarn, you need acid and you need heat. The more acid you have, the quicker it will bind. And here I'm just checking to see whether it's set, and you can see it's not moving around. If it hasn't set and I was to prod the yarn like this, then it would blend and you would lose the speckles and the sharpness of the speckles, which we don't want. I do not want this yarn to not be nice and speckly and have the speckles be sharp and crisp. So as I was saying, when you have more acid in the yarn, it will get those colors to bind quicker to do that, and then the others will stay. When you have more heat, that will help, because the heat then sets the color in that area and therefore it can't move. So if you had less acid, if the pan was a little bit cooler, then we probably would have less breaking. So as I spoke already, I'm now putting in the sage green, and as I'm putting it in, you can see the areas that are becoming a little bit darker, and you can also see the no green. There's genuinely, the only time you get any green is when the sage hits a yellow patch, and then you get a green, but you get this sort of quite neon green, because the yellow is such a neon colors are so powerful. They're so pigmented, they're so strong. And yeah, so I basically put the sage in, and as I'm doing it, I remember feeling really quite disappointed, because it was, oh yeah, here's another video that I'm trying to do, here's another yarn that I've got in my mind, and it's not working the way I wanted to. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely beautiful. I love what we ended up with. I actually really, really like this yarn. It's just that yet again, it's not quite what I wanted. And again, one of the reasons is that that particular sage green is not a color that I had used in this way before. I've used it to dye tonals with it, which is, you know, just one color, you know, mixed in a solution in the pot, wham bam, you're done. So I'd never speckled with it. I didn't expect it to break quite this dramatically. I didn't expect it to just end up being blue. So yeah, I'm speckling away, and you can see, especially sort of in the center of the pan, it's quite blue. And then what I'll do, and I'll speed up the video now because there's just no point of me talking for half an hour over the same thing, is I repeat this process a couple other times. So I speckle on the green, I leave it to set, and then once I'm happy that it's set and it's not going to spread, if I was to flip the yarn over, I flip it over to the other side, and I do the process again. I go a little bit heavier actually with both the yellow and the plum dandy, and the second round on the other side, I also go quite heavy on the sage, and you can see I didn't have actually that much of the sage, and that's because when I mix these colors, I also use them for a couple of other yarns that I had that were commissions in different ways, and so this was a bit of a leftover video as well, so just kind of using up the bits and pieces. But yeah, you see me zooming in here and showing the blue that's supposed to be green. So yeah, so oh god, I completely lost my train of thought. And because I'm doing this voiceover for like the 4th or 5th time, I'm just going to leave this in here, and you can see the challenge that these videos present, and that it's not really all that easy to film and voiceover and things. But yeah, so we sprinkle, we set, we flip, and repeat this process as many times until we get the coverage that we want. Throughout this whole process, I don't want to completely cover the yarn. I don't want to necessarily get rid of the whites. I like a little bit of white patches, so that is essentially what I ended up with. There's a little bit of white here and there, and yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave you with a sped up video, a little bit of nice music, and I will be back to show you the finished yarn. Oh yes, before I do that, I've just seen and realized, because we've got neon, I'm shining my blue light on there to show you the lovely neon specks. And if you go on my Instagram, you will be able to see a picture of this in the dark at some point. I may have not put that up yet. I've scheduled a lot of my posts, and I'm not sure whether that post has gone out or not. So yeah, depending on when you're watching this video, it may have gone out, or it may be coming out at some point soon. So yeah, enjoy the rest of this video, and I will be back to show you the finished yarn. it has been a couple of days and the yarn is now dry, and this is the finished skein. So you can see where the sage green is now just very, very blue. This is the DK yarn, so I'll just unskein it as well so that you see what it looks like, and put it down. And then this is the high twist sock yarn, and so you can see again the sage green is just completely broken into blue. There's actually absolutely no green apart from where the blue and where the sage green and the fluorescent lemon have actually mixed in little areas like this. But we have some beautiful speckles, you can see. I absolutely love this area where you just have the plum dandy and the fluorescent yellow, and the plum dandy you can see is also broken. So where you have these purple speckles is broken into the blue pigment and the pink pigment that you have, and they are just absolutely beautiful. I love in these areas where you get the sort of orangey colour as well, mixed with like the blue and the pink and the purpley specks. I think overall, while I am a bit annoyed at the sage green breaking, and you see, I'll show you the swatch that I made as well, though my cast off was a bit, I tried a new stretchy one just as practice and it's just ridiculous. But yeah, so I was saying that I'm a bit annoyed the sage green in the fact that, you know, I thought it might break a little bit. I didn't think that it was just going to turn into blue. Like you can see, this is very, very blue, and I don't know how much of these sort of areas that you see, the really blue areas, how much of it is the sage breaking and how much of it is the plum dandy breaking, but you can see where it is just the plum dandy. It has broken a little bit, but it's mostly into just sort of pink and reddish with the occasional blue speck, while where I know there is green, there are just these massive blue areas. So apart from that being really, really annoying and essentially spoiling the initial idea of what I wanted the yarn to look like, it is essentially how I imagined it would turn out. You know, it's heavily speckled, it's taken a bit of a tinge of the purpley pink from the blue dandy, or a little bit of the yellow where it's hit the water and it has spread a little bit, and again I think it's because of that green that it looks, especially, I keep moving the yarns, especially the DK, it looks a little bit muddy. So I'll bring it back up again. When you look at it like that, it can look a little bit muddy, but when you knit it up, and I'll show you the swatch now, it is absolutely gorgeous. So I've done a half double, that's American half double crochet here at the bottom, and I think it is absolutely beautiful. And then I've just done a standard, you can see a stocking net, and you can do a bit of garter stitch, and then it looks really pretty on the back as well with the reverse of the garter stitch. So when it's knitting up, apart from like again the blue hues which I wanted to be green hues, it's knitting up or crocheting exactly how I wanted it to. So I'm gonna call this one a success. I'm really, really pleased. Absolutely love the way that it crochets. I think particularly this yarn is more suited to crochet projects than this to knitted projects. I think maybe as in a part of knitting, but not as the main colour, but as an accent colour maybe in knitting. And I think it actually looks better on the reverse of the garter stitch than of the stocking net than the actual stocking net. But yeah, I love the way this crocheted. The light is not great at the moment. I just can't seem to be able to get good light. It's so grey here. But this is, the colours are pretty true on this. You can see the bright yellows, you can see where it's mixed and you get a bit of green, you can see the blues and the pinks and the purples and sort of raspberry rather than purple. You do get a bit of purple here, so where I'm guessing the green and the plum dandy mixed and stuff. But really pleased. Yeah, the stretchy cast off that I just tried for the swatch ended up really stretchy. I mean, it's essentially what I wanted to do, but it's not great for a swatch. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to photograph these. Well, I'm going to photograph the swatch. I've already taken photos of the two yarns, and they are up on the Etsy shop. If you're interested, you can go and grab them. I will not be dyeing this colorway again, so they are about as unique as you can get them. And yeah, we will try a similar technique again with different colors, and I'll make sure that it is colors where if they break, it's not actually going to spoil the overall look and feel of the yarn. Because to me, well, I love the way that it has crocheted up, and it would just be a beautiful yeah, it can be like a really lovely hat, or you know, there's enough here to be a part of a two skein scarf actually. If you mix it maybe with white or with deeper raspberry colors, it would be absolutely stunning. But yeah, we'll try a couple of other speckling techniques as well, with less water, more water on the counter, to see how it fares. But thank you very much for watching, and please do remember to subscribe if you haven't already, press the thumbs up and the little bell icon so that you don't miss upcoming videos, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.